The last one, frankly, this is probably the most important one, is the word Ontario. Once Ontario went this path, it was a formality for everybody else in the country. When your largest single economic bloc now has a 7% advantage over every small business in British Columbia, there is no way you wouldn't find a guy like me going, we gotta do this. Because I'm not gonna be the guy who leaves the small business community of British Columbia as that minister at a 7% disadvantage to every small business in Ontario. Now, the Premier's done a lot of speeches on this, and he made a comment last week which I think resonates probably better than anyone else. Don't believe me if you don't want to. Believe the Premier of Ontario, who stood up when he heard about a referendum, and his exact phrase was, I hope BC gets rid of the HST, that would be great for Ontario. We saw enough jobs go to Ontario a decade ago. We're not interested in playing that game again. So there's a couple of great reasons why we're doing this. Now, we've got a historical event coming at us in 2011. It's no longer about political theater. It's actually, you can continue to have conversations about the theatrics around it and the implementation of it and the poor communication of it, and that's fair ball. But let's be very clear. This referendum, it's not about politics anymore. It's about decisions and consequences for communities, for small businesses, and definitely for individuals. And let me just, then this is my final slide, I'll wrap up after this, but I want to make a very, very key point or two here. We collect today about $5.7 billion in provincial sales tax. Under the HST, we're going to collect $5.7 billion. So truism number one, there is no tax grab in government by moving to the HST. Begs the question why we put up with so much grief if there's no rainbow or pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But that's the fact. $5.7 billion in both cases. We're actually out of pocket. $200 million in the first year. We kind of break even in the second. And thereafter, if the rest of the economic theory holds, the little economic engine spins a bit quicker, we're actually come out ahead tens of millions of dollars. But on the $40 billion expenditure, it's a rounding error. So $5.7 billion. So let's play the let's pretend game for just a minute. If British Columbians decide that they want to get rid of the HST, what are you going to do with the $5.7 billion hole that you just put in the $40 billion budget? Put aside the $1.6 billion that we have to return to the feds. Put aside the $230 a year that the 1.1 million lower income British Columbians are currently getting as a result of moving to the HST system, which by the way covers them off to about $3,500 worth of currently non-taxed or non-HST taxed goods. So what are our choices? Well, currently, I just bragged about, legitimately I believe, the fact that we've got the lowest personal income taxes in the country. We collect about $5.9 billion in personal income taxes. So maybe we should just double everybody's income tax. That's one way. Got to fill the hole. Or we could say we're not going to fill the hole. What we could do perhaps is eliminate 1/3 of the healthcare budget. It was $8.3 billion when we were elected in 2001. It'll be $16 billion next year. We can take 1/3 of that away, I guess. But the point is, as we go through this next year, we have to think about the forestry communities of my friend Pat Bell and the $140 million directly that means to the family-sustaining forestry jobs in communities like Mackenzie that he represents, which for the first time in years have mills reopening that have been closed and additional shifts being added where those shifts currently hadn't been there. My friend Bill Bennett, we think of all the mining and exploration, $300 million to the mining community is what the HST means, and those are family-supporting jobs. And as we turn to regions of the province where we're aggressively investing in electricity infrastructure to support mines in areas where they know that there's good geological reserves, to support hospitals and schools in the province, it seems to me that these are important questions that we can't ignore. Now, along the way here, I mean, I could talk about agriculture as well. The agricultural community was one of the first ones to come out and said that this is great for them. One of the questions I got at UBCM last week, by the way, we had a cattle panel. And there's a woman who said, what are the things the government can do for the agriculture community? And my response was, make sure they understand what they're going to lose if the HST goes away. And I wasn't being trite about it, but it's one of the factors because they were one of the first communities to come out and whatnot. I think of transportation, $200 million to them. Manufacturing, $300 million there, about $800 million for construction. These are all small businesses, folks. This is Small Business Month. This is a small business issue. And so in wrapping up, I want to thank the CGAs. Because frankly, you've declared your stance. You said that $140 million in removed costs to businesses by going to one system versus two is a good thing. You said going from 16 reports a year to 4 is a good thing, and that reducing the effective tax, the marginal effective tax on job-creating investment by about 1/4 is a good thing. and that 1.1 million British Columbians who are currently getting $230 a year should continue doing so. The CGAs have sought to communicate this to their clients and to the general public through panels, publications, media interviews, video conferencing, and seminars. And I want to thank the CGAs for that effort, because I know all too well the slings and arrows of this conversation, and that type of community leadership is not something that I nor any of my elected colleagues takes for granted. So I want to say thank you for that. So, in wrapping up, I want to say thank you to the CGAs for hosting this today. I want to say definitely thanks to the Small Business Roundtable for their tireless efforts throughout the year, advising me, and for the report that I'm about to receive from them. But most of all, I want to thank the small business community here in Victoria, across Vancouver Island, and indeed across the province of British Columbia. You know, it was on your shoulders on which we stood in 2001, when we were coming out of a very, very difficult economic situation where we had to rebuild this economy to be the top in the country. And as we come out of what is being called the worst recession that we've seen in a generation, it is once again on your shoulders that we stand to have British Columbia resume its rightful place of economic leadership in Canada. So thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure for me. Thank you.